Necessarily reflect those of the advertisers, owners, or management of Pacific Telestations LLC. For comments, opinions, and questions, please email Jess Lujan at jessthebuzz@gmail.com. The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Tonight we're going to update you on, of course, the Tecjon, the firing range over there. And I have both ladies again that were here about a month and a half ago. We have Sabina Flores-Perez alongside Kelly Titano Marsh, who's here as well, to give us the update, because there are quite a few changes. And I know there's been busy. Yeah, I think the military have been making their rounds around the island as well, and you guys as well. And so looking like we're not on the same page from either side. Anyway, welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Jesse, for having us here today.
So the update.
So last time we met, what happened was there was a court case that was being held up because the Department of Navy was trying to dismiss the Earthjustice case in the CNMI. And since that time, the judge ruled that the court case can go forward and that they can determine whether the Department of Navy was deficient in their analysis of the environmental impact statements. And if the case is successful, then they would throw out the 2010 and 2015 records of decision, which will impact the buildup on Guam.
So let me ask you, so the judge saying there is sufficient evidence, I guess, for the case to go forward. So does that mean there's a stay? Because from the perspective of the military, you know, now is basically the contracts have been awarded. They're going to be breaking ground here real soon. So it's not sounding like there's a stay until such a time the court makes a decision.
That's absolutely correct. And unfortunately, there's no link between putting a pause on the construction of the firing range and this court case. And so that's the work that we've been doing as Patella Texan. And in fact, that's what we were able to do with this legislature, the Guam legislature, in which they passed overwhelmingly a resolution to put put a pause on the firing range, which is non-binding, but it's basically a statement by the legislature and the voice of the people, which represents the voice of the people, that it makes sense while this court case is being decided that you know, there should be a pause in all activities, especially with events that are going to be irrevocable. So once you destroy this pristine limestone forest, the native habitat of our very endangered species, you cannot regain it. And there's nobody that we know has ever created a limestone forest from scratch. In fact, these things have taken hundreds, if not century, you know, millions of years, because with the evolution, the bioevolution of our land and together with the flora and fauna, it took many years for this to develop.
So let me ask, so the resolution, is it addressed to the court, to the judge, Department of Defense, or both?
I believe that there was copies sent to both Madeline Bordallo, the governor. There were other politicians that I believe that it was sent to. I have to double check what the resolution said. But the thing too I want to make note of is that for the military to go forward with this, it represents the most severe disregard of due process. And it's basically the opposite of the military acting in good faith as a show to the people of Guam that they respect our wishes.
You know, as a matter of fact, if again my memory serves me correct in this, in some of the situation back in Okinawa in regards to the transferring of some of their operations to a different part of Okinawa, there were some environmental concerns as well that they needed to address, and there were pauses, there were severe pauses that they had to incur, the U.S. federal government incur, because there were some concerns about an area that they were going to move from to because of certain, I think, birds or whatever it may be.
The dugong.
And so and so there were pauses. So what you're saying is some of the pauses that were in relation to maybe environmental concerns back there, that we have the concerns as well here, but those pauses were tend to over there, but not being tend to over here?
Correct. I think it's my understanding that those pauses were due to the resistance movement there.
Okay.
So the Okinawans, every day I was there in Okinawa in January, I'm sorry, in June, and every day there is these elderly people that go there, and they go out on their boats on the Henoko Bay, which is where they're planning to build a landfill to extend the runway, and that's a sacred habitat for the dugong, which is endangered, one of endangered species, and it's also a symbol for the Okinawans. So yes, there are parallels because what's going to be impacted there are also sacred as well as endangered species. But what's different is that there's more of the direct action that's taking place, and they've been fighting it for over 10 years, very strongly over there.
No, I remember I served in the legislature when actually we went over to Okinawa to look at both, the positive and negative side of course, military buildup, right? And how we can maybe look at what they have gone through or going through, and hopefully don't repeat those mistakes or the challenges that they have.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned, looking at the positives and negatives, because it's really about being accountable. It's really about protecting our freshwater source and protecting, we brought this visual, and this is actually a map from the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement itself. And so we want people to understand, maybe it's something we haven't conveyed well enough, but it's a conservation area. Decades ago, specialists put this area aside. And so the whole reason that we designate conservation areas or cultural resources, historic properties, is because we say there are certain parts of us that are special enough that we need to put them aside. We need to have a special layer of protection. And so I don't know that it's very clear to people that we're talking about a conservation area. So when we're talking about these ranges, it's all up in this conservation area. And really, by bulldozing this area, it's taking millions of dollars of tax dollars, millions of them, and that have been applied over numerous years, and it's literally bulldozing them away. This right here is a fence to keep out ungulates or pigs and deer.
Sure.
And so that was said to be $1 million fence. It cost tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, to upkeep every single year. And all of that will actually be bulldozed. And so what we're mentioning is this is one of our special areas. Here, the red lines also show that this is critical habitat for endangered and threatened species. So at the very least, while the court case is active, we need the military to put a pause on this because it is irrevocable. This high concentration of some of them, we're down to the very last of many of our species. To not do that if the analysis is not correct. And with what Sabina was mentioning about this being a recreated forest that they're proposing, they're saying, well, we're going to bulldoze this one, but don't worry, we're going to rebuild another forest or rehabilitate another forest elsewhere. But again, people don't realize until you start reading through the biological opinion that for the species that are going to be translocated out of here, the predictions are that maybe 50% of them may not survive. So right now it's 100% survival, 100%.
Yeah, okay.
And there are special environmental conditions that they're thriving
That allow them to thrive in that.
Exactly, that have, as Sabina was saying, formed over thousands, if not millions of years. If we take them to a new forest, a new area, now we're experimenting. 50% may not survive. There are some charts that say maybe only a 1 in 5 is what we're going to be working with. So we're going from 100% down to 20%. And part of this also is you have mature trees that might be 50 years old, they might be 60 years old, they might be older than that have been part of our environment for centuries. All they'll be doing is taking the seeds from those. They will bulldoze those thriving, successful, mature trees, and they will take those seeds, they will hold them for a while, and hope that those seeds survive elsewhere. So it's really asking us to take this, which is thriving, and push it back perhaps numerous decades.
But yes, the argument that the federal government may argue in this sense. But I tell you, before I do that, I need to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Sure.